Hey everyone, this is Alex USA Days. So today we're going to talk about assertions. We did talk about selectors in the previous video. We actually built a web page for it, right? And we practice different selectors. So today we're practicing the second part of it, is pretty much how do you check that whatever you select is actually having the value that you expect, right? So Playwright assertions are statements that validate the state of the application under test. They are used to compare the actual output of a part of the application with its expected output. If the actual output matches the expected output, the assertion passes. If not, it fails, indicating a potential issue with the application. So here are some common types of Playwright assertions. Visibility, asserting that an element is visible or hidden. Text content, checking that an element contains certain text. Attribute values, ensuring that an element has a specific attribute value. Count, verifying the number of elements that match a specific selector. State, such as ensuring a checkbox is checked or element is enabled or disabled. Navigation, confirming that the application has navigated to the correct URL after an action. So there are many more assertions. We're going to take a look at them right now in the documentation. You're not going to be able to remember everything immediately. I mean, the more you practice, the more you will understand what assertions to use. Over time, you will have your own repository that you can have a reference. But if you don't know something, it's absolutely fine to spend some time going into documentation, reading, and trying to figure things out. So don't be afraid to open documentation. It's a very important skill to develop, is actually going into documentation and figuring things out. All right, so let's get into that. So here we are at the Playwright dev. This is their web page for the Playwright, and you can just type assertions. Now let's open them up, and we can see a good bunch of them. So Playwright includes test assertions in the form of expect function. To make an assertion, call expect function with value and choose the matcher that reflects expectation. So you can verify success to be truthy. You can verify text. There are auto retrying assertions. So auto retrying assertions will retry until assertion passes, right? Or it will timeout. So those are more stable assertions. If element is not showing up in time, it takes a little bit longer to show up. It will retry until it times out or element will show up. So those are more stable. You can see there's a good list of assertions here. But they're also non-retrying assertions. So these assertions allow to test any conditions, but they do not auto-retry. So sometimes you need to, maybe there's a certain value that you already have in place. You know it's coming back. There's no timeout needed. And you can just assert it without non-retrying assertion. So obviously they're less stable if you're dealing with a synchronous application and some replies don't come at the same time all the time, and there's maybe certain order of events that have to take place. But those are also valuable. So get familiar with the list of auto-retrying assertions, right, and what they do, and with the list of non-retrying assertions. Also, sometimes you don't want to fail a test. When you do an assertion, you want to have a check saying something failed, but you want the test to continue. And for that, you can just add soft assertions. You can see there's a keyword soft that you add to assertion. For example, we're verifying that there's a certain text, their text is success. Let's say the text is missing. The test will not fail because the assertions here is the soft assertion. Okay, so now let's go ahead and practice a little bit. We will go to the internetherokuapp.com. So this is the web page we're going to practice on. This page has been online forever. Since I remember, going into automation was always available. It's still available. So I think it's pretty stable. I think it's going to change anytime soon. It's not going to go away anywhere. So it's safe to practice it. And practice your automation skills on this page. All right, so what I will do, I will have my code editor here opened, and in the next tab nearby, right underneath, so I can switch between them, I'll have the web page. So I can switch like this quickly. So in the tests folder, let's create new file, and let's call it assertions.spec.js. Perfect. And what do we need to do first? Well, we need to import test and expect from Playwright. So I'm just going to go in some other files that we used before and import it. Perfect. And next we need to start our test. So because I'm going to try multiple assertions, instead of just going with the test keyword, I will go with the describe. So describe is essentially a block where you can have a bunch of things inside. So I will start with test.describe, and within describe we will have our tests. So it's like a set of scenarios that you can have a description for. Let's do only, and let's name it learn assertions. Okay, so same syntaxes. We put parentheses here, put an arrow function, and now inside of here we will have our tests. So let's do our first test, and let's verify certain behaviors for the web browser, right? So we'll verify web page behavior. And we put async, open parentheses, and here within the brackets we put page, right? So page will interact with the web page. All right, let's start first with going to the actual internetheroicapp.com, right? So back to the Playwright, and we'll start with await page, go to, and address of the web page. All right, perfect. So what is the first thing we can confirm when we go to that page? We can confirm that page has a certain URL, right? So let's add a comment. So the first assertion to have URL. I'm going to say await. And then now we start with expect, right? And then here we say page. And what are we expecting? So after expect page, we will say dot to have, and it gives us options, right? To have URL. Okay. What URL we're expecting to see? Well, if we're navigating to the internetheroicapp.com, that means that's the URL we want to see right here. So that's going to be our first assertion. Let's add a pause here and test it. npx playwright test -- headed. Okay, so it navigated to the internetheroicapp.com. It paused right here and actually passes. So immediately this is passing. Okay, let's add one more test after the pause so we can see the actual assertion happening. So the second one, let's add to have a title, right? So our page should have a certain title. Let's inspect it, go to the page, right click inspect. So what is the title? You can see it here in the tab. You can also see title right here, the internet in the head. So the title that we're expecting is the internet, the text right here. So I can say await expect page to have title, and the title that we're expecting is the internet. Save it, and I'm going to give it one more run. Okay, here we are. Let's start moving into next step. So step over, expect page to have title, next step, and it's asserted. All right, good. Passed. Okay, let's add one more test. It was in our describe block that we're gonna skip those two now, but I will show you can have multiple tests within one describe. So I will start another keyword test here, and in parentheses, I'll just name it continue. Continue with assertions. And here we also passing in page. All right, so I'm gonna skip this two altogether. I will just say test only going forward for what we're gonna provide here. And the third one that we're gonna look at is for element to be visible. Assert visibility. Okay, good. So what we're gonna assert, let's take a look with our inspect. Actually, right here. How about certain visibility that our H1 element, the text H1 heading text, welcome to the internet, is actually visible, that you can see it. This whole element is visible. This whole thing. So we can do that. We need to type out expect, await, expect, page, and then dot to be visible. And we need to provide what should be visible, right? So within the page, we need to tell, okay, what is being visible. So here, where we'll actually need to use locator, because we're not sure what is visible right now, right? We talked about URL and we talked about the title. This is pertaining to the whole page. Now, for something to be visible, we need to point to the element here. So how do we point to the element? We say page.locator, and then the name of the locator, however we want to locate it. So here we're going to locate by H1. So by the tag of the element, right? H1. So we're saying this H1, this whole thing should be visible. Okay, so it is complaining. Let's see why. Await, unexpected, await. Okay, so one thing that we'll have to do still, we'll still have to navigate to the page. And we need to have our async test only continues async. So we forgot async keyword. Okay, that looks good. And at the end, I'm still going to add a pause so we can visually see it. So it's running only this test case, and it passed. Maybe we can add one pause before and one pause after. Okay, so we visit the page, and we immediately start at line 20. So assert visibility. It is waiting right now, so we're going to put step over. Next step goes to assert locator. You can see now the locator H1 is highlighted and asserting that it is visible. And next step, it paused again on line 24, and now you can see there's a little check mark here that it passed, so H1 is actually visible, right? So it looks good. Okay, we assert visibility. Let's do some text assertion. So number 4, assert element to have text. Now here we looked at the element being visible, h1 being visible, but we will look into h2 and we will also assert that the text inside of it matches what we're looking at. So it should be available examples, this text right here. So we're going to say await, expect, it's odd important, something we don't want. So await, expect, page dot locator, and it's h2, so the second header. And now we're going to say to have text dot to have text. So let's take a look what to have text actually doing, right? So we can go to assertions, and here's our to have text. We can just say assertions, open it up, and find it here. So to have text, element matches text. Ensures the locator points to an element with the given text. All the nested elements will be considered when computing the text content of the element. You can use regular expressions for the value as well. So what it does, it will look for an exact match, right? So the text should be exact that you're going to provide here. And that's what we're going to do. Not a partial match, but it should have the text there, right? Not to contain, not the partial, but the whole thing. So what's the text that we're looking at? Is available example. So let's copy it and put right here. Await page dot pause, and let's run it. So again, it starts from the test dot only. That's the test case that it's going to start with, and it paused on line 22. Moving to the next step. Now it grabs, you can see it grabbed available examples. And now it's going to assert the text inside and finish the test. And it's done. Okay, perfect. So next one, let's do assertion that it actually contains certain text. So assert contains text. So it doesn't have to be the whole thing, just partially. We can say partially it has what we need. So await, expect, page dot locator, and what are we gonna look at? So the page. There's a bunch of text here on this link, WYSI editor right here. So let's just assert this part, WYSI so without the editor. So partially we're asserting that this text is present, not the whole thing, but partially we can say, okay, this is present. Now what's the locator for this? So there's just a link. What about we're going to grab the whole body, the whole thing, and just say within the body of this page, we want to make sure that this text is present. Right? So we can do that. We can say for the locator, we can actually just say body, right? And then to contain text, and that's the text we're looking for. And again, I'm going to add a pause before and after, so we can see the assertion went through successfully. And let's run it. Okay. So it looks at the whole body of the page now. Next step, body to contain this text. And you can see the whole thing is now highlighted. The locator body just looks at the whole thing, full page. And next step, and to contain this text, so it highlighted check mark, so it passed, so it found that this body actually does contain this text. and step over. That's it. Test case is done. Okay, so let's add one more test. Also make it test.only. So we're gonna run here. Within the describe block now you can see this is like a scenario with set of test cases. So this test 1, test 2, and now we're in test 3, right? So continue with assertions part 2. Okay, great. So let's not forget a sync this time. Sync page, and then an arrow function here. That's our body. Next, what we're going to do next, so let's do count, assertion of a count. So this page has multiple links available right here within the page. If I'll go into the console, I can actually go and see, say I want to see how many links are available here. So I can say A. A stands for href, so the tag A starts with for a link, right? And if I go to the console and I type out $$A, it's going to come back with a number of all the elements it found that starts with A, all the tags. So there's like 46, the lengths of it 46, starting with 0, last being 45. So 0 is the first number essentially. So now let's assert that actual amount of links here is 46. Like I have 46 links on this page. So how can I do that, right? That includes whatever links are available here or here or here, whatever A tags are present, right? Like for example, if I'll grab the very first one and I hover over it, you can't even see on the page, but it's somewhere there. So here is yeah, that's the actual GitHub link, this one. Here's the first one. And then we go through the links available here to click on different parts of the pages, navigate to different type of scenarios, right? So 46 total. How can I assert that? So first, we're still going to come back as a first step to the page, right? We have to navigate to the page to do the assertions. Number 6, let assert count. And I'm going to say await, expect, page.locator. And because we're asserting all the links, I'm just going to say tag A. So pretty much A here. And all I need to do is just say to have count. And what's the count we're looking at? Well, 46, right? If we want to read a little bit more about to have count, we can go to Playwright, to our assertions, find to have count. Count. Okay, here it is. List has exact number of children. So yeah, what essentially we're doing, we're creating a list out of all the tag A's, so the tags that contain the link, and then we're counting through that list, making sure there's 46 items stored within this list. Right. Let's add a pause before it and after. So we can confirm that the check went through, and let's run it. Okay, page is opened up. Step over, and you can see it highlighted all of the locators, all of them, and then counted it. So right now it just highlighted. Next step is going to count. So you can see it passed. There's a check mark. It is 46, and it paused execution. And now we're going to step over and finish it. Okay, perfect. Passed. All right. So what else we can do? So let's see elements to be checked. Okay, and there is this link checkboxes. So on the internetherohub.com, checkboxes right here. So this is where we need to navigate first, right? So we can copy our await page go to, but we're actually going to the checkboxes link. All right, perfect. So after we navigate, what we need to do, we need to interact with the elements here. So we can check it and uncheck it and then verify if they're checked or unchecked. So if you refresh the page, you will see it starts with the first being unchecked and the second being checked. What we actually can do, we can say await page.pause and record this and add the checking and checking ourselves. Let's run it. Page is open and navigated to the checkboxes. Now I can say recording, and here is so I'm going to interact on clicking on it on the first one and clicking on the second. Now I have two actions here interacting with the elements. So I'm just going to copy that. Let's close it. I'm going to add it here. So it used that first for the first checkbox, but it used nth1 for the second one. So because count starts with 0, right? So that is the second element. So the first one will be 0, and that's actually this one. So instead of using first for the first checkbox and nth1 for the second, let's use nth for the both of them. So it's more consistent. So what we're doing, we're checking the first one and we're checking the second, right? Let me add pause before it and see how that runs. Okay, we are here. Next step, it's checked. Next step, it's unchecked. And that's it. Completed. Okay, so we added checking and then unchecking. So we check the first one, uncheck the second checkboxes. Now we can add assertions. So you can use the same locator, this guy right here. So I can say await, expect, and within the expect, I'm gonna grab the locator. So the first one should be checked, right? To be checked. We're verifying the first one is checked after our actions, and the second one is unchecked. So to be unchecked, we just say not to be checked. All right. So we go and check the first checkbox. We go and uncheck the second one. Then we verify that the first one is checked, and then we verify that the second one is unchecked. Let's remove the pauses, and let's run it. All right, it passed. Sometimes, if you have an issue with a page loading or elements loading, we can add explicitly wait for something to happen. For example, if I will try to run through this test and Playwright for some reason doesn't wait, right? What you can do, you can add something like this. You can actually insert a pause. So you can say await, not a pause, but a timeout, await page, and then say wait for timeout, and it's in milliseconds, so 1,000 milliseconds will be 1 second. So before it will start doing any interactions with the page, it will wait for 1 second. Another way to increase stability, if you're feeling that elements are not loading right in time for the verification and Playwright is not catching it for some reason, you can also say wait for a load await page, wait for a load state, and the load state will be network idle. So that means there are no more interactions here happening in the network tab. Everything is loaded. It will wait until the whole thing stops. It's not working for all of the pages. Some of the pages, the communication might be pretty extensive, but if it is working for you, you can also use network idle. And the last one is wait for. You can also say, let's do let checkbox. So we're gonna actually add a variable checkbox, and within that variable we're gonna store checkbox nth1, and then we can say await page, actually await checkbox, and then do wait for. So there are multiple ways how you can add more stability if built-in stability for the Playwright fails. So this will wait for a second until interacting with elements. This will wait for the page to finishing any network activity and network tab activity before interacting with elements. And this one was stored element into a variable, and then was said, we want to make sure that this variable actually shows up on the page explicitly before interacting with it. And let's run it one more time. I'm going to start with the pause so we can see it step by step happening. Okay, here we are. Use inspector. Step over. Waits for a second right now. So it's done. Once 1 second passed, timeout passed. Then it looks for the load state, and it makes sure that there's no more activity. That is also passed. Waited for the element is there. Also passed. And now, after all of those additional waitings and checks for the element to be present, it goes into checking it. So clicks on it, checks it, goes to the second one, unchecks it, verifies the first one checked, verifies the second is unchecked. All right, perfect. Okay, let's clear the console and let's go add one more check. All right, this is good. This is good. I'm just gonna have this all here. Let's minimize this, and let's minimize this. All right, let's add one more. So test. We can just copy this whole thing. I'm gonna minimize it, call it part 3. You see it errored out. You can't have the same test names, right? Have to be unique. So that's why we're naming it 3, and I'm gonna delete all this. So we ended on elements to be checked. Let's do one more, and let's do have value, right? Have value. So this time, to have value, let's go back to herocrab.com. This time, actually, let's go to the login page, the one that we've seen before, right? And here, we're just going to provide, we will fill out first name and last name, and then we'll verify. Well, actually, let's fill out the username here, Tom Smith, and then let's verify that the value was actually filled in, right? So inspect this. So for the locator, we can use ID username. Let's do that. So we're going to the login page. And here we're going to say await page.fill. So what are we filling? We're filling username, right? username ID. What are we filling it with? We're filling with text Tom Smith. Okay. And then we're going to say, well, this is actually not consistent. So I like to be consistent. Not to confuse you here, and what I'm going to do, I will say page dot locator ID username like this. So we're more consistent across the board. So first we will find page locator, and then we'll fill value. And then we're going to do await, expect, page locator username, right? This thing. And what we're expecting now, well, we're expecting it to have value. And the value is what we entered, Tom Smith. Let's add test.only for this run, and let's do await page.pause. So we can see execution step by step. Let's do it. Run it. All right, step over. We're filling out Tom Smith. Oh, there's a typo in the ID, so it's gonna fail now. Let's cancel it. Username. Okay, I'll run it one more time. Okay. So step over. Found the field. Step over. Added value. And then step over and verified value is Tom Smith was in the field. Okay, perfect. Let's do verification if element is enabled or disabled. For example, we want to make sure that this submit button is actually enabled. It's clickable, right? So we can say number 9 element is enabled. Sometimes you want to verify that they're enabled. Sometimes you want to verify that they're disabled. So await page dot locator. What is the locator here? So it's a button type submit. We can use tag button and we can use type submit for it. Okay, so locator is button. So that's the tag. And then type of the button is submit. Okay, so we're grabbing this element. So what we want to do, we actually want to verify it. We want to have it within the expect, right? Await expect for this button and to be enabled. So the element is actually enabled. You can interact with it, right? I'm going to add a pause right before and right after this check. Let's see it. Okay. Found the button, verify that the button is enabled, and finish the test. If you want to check if element is disabled, we don't have a disabled element on this page, but you can do pretty much very same thing, very similar. Instead of to be enabled, you can just say to be disabled. Like element is grayed out and not clickable, that would be disabled, right? You can verify that as well. Okay, so let's do a little different example. Like we will store value at certain text within a variable and then verify it, right? So store text in variable and then verify content. So instead of directly doing expect, we can say we can say we want to store the text coming from the variable, and then we want to verify that text. So for example, we were here on the first page verifying the text in H1 that it is visible. Now let's assert the actual text. So we can say await. Well, we'll have to go to, let's have it as the last test. Number 10 is the last test. Okay, I'm gonna just copy it over, do test.only, so it runs only this, part 4. We go into the main page and we're looking at the element H1 text, right? Okay, so first we need to store the content. So const header text, and here we will do await page dot locator. What is the locator? H1. And then we will grab text content. So the content is stored now in the header text, and then we can just say expect this header text, and then to be something, to be, and whatever value we want, right? If we go to the assertions for the Playwright assertions, and you can see there's expect value to be. So this is going to be a non-retrying assertion. This is going to be different from this. So this will retry, this will not retry. Why is it important to understand the difference? Well, if you're retrying, that means you will be waiting for element to appear. There will be less flakiness. If you're not waiting, immediately as it loads, it tries, maybe element is not there, text is not there, it's going to fail. In our case, we will still going to have it because we have this await. This await will wait for the element and then grab the text. Now this expect doesn't have to wait anymore. So await header text to be, and then to be is a non-retrying assertion from here. Value is the same. So value is the same. What value we're asserting? We're asserting welcome to the internet. So the text inside H1 element is welcome to the internet. We grabbed it in the header text value, and we're asserting that it's equal to this text. Now let's run it, see what happens. And it passes. Okay, perfect. So now I can uncomment the last test only. I have a bunch of tests within this describe block. Now I can say test.only this describe. I have other tests here. I don't have any tags on them. But if I want to test just this describe block, I can do that. And let's rerun the whole thing. I don't think there's any pauses. No, there's some pauses. So let me actually, maybe let's start with a pause and we go through everything step by step, right? To kind of see the whole flow. No pauses here. No, okay. I think we should be good. All right, let's start. So we're starting here at the pause. First assertion is to have URL. Let's step into it. Page to have URL, horrorcrab.com. Step into it, assert it, check mark is passed. Next one, we're asserting title, to have the title. The title is the internet right here. Step over into it, and it passed. And once it passed, it actually ran through the rest because this pause was pertaining only to this test block. This one passed, the rest ran without any pauses. Okay, so in this page pause, again, to this block here. That's fine. All right, so let's do debug. When I do debug, it's just going to go through the whole thing step by step without the pause, right? Step over, we're in the internet herokuapp.com. We assert it has the URL. We assert the title is the internet. Okay, then we're moving to the next test block here. So now we're in the second one. Continue with assertion. Going back to the page. We're asserting H1 is visible. We're asserting that H2 has text available examples. We're asserting that the body contains this text right here. Yep, perfect. And then we're in the next test block. Go into the page, assert that there are 46 links. Yep. Then we go to the checkboxes. Waiting for a second, waiting for network to be stable, clicking on the first checkbox, unclicking the second checkbox, asserting that it is clicked, the box number 1 is clicked, asserting that the box number 2 is unclicked or unchecked. Perfect. Okay, and going into the next text block, so part 3, continue with assertions, step over. We're at the login page, we're filling out username with Tom Smith, and then we're asserting that this field actually has Tom Smith. Then we're going to the submit button and making sure that the submit button is enabled. Perfect. And now we are in the last one, part number 4. And we will store the H1 text in a variable, and then we will use non-waiting expect assertion without the await keyword, you see? Internet herokuapp.com, herokuapp.com, grab the title, grab the H1 text, and then assert it, and the whole thing passes. Okay, perfect. So hopefully this was a good introduction on assertions, and now you can do some assertions and practice on your own. So in my opinion, the best way to learn is by doing stuff. So how you want to approach this video, if you just watched it now, rewatch it, pause, type things out, and make sure that you're also being able to assert elements. Okay, so this was Alex USA Days. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.